Hey, welcome to Covenant Brothers podcast, hosted by two lifelong friends, Nathan Middleton, myself, and David Waddell, sharing our journeys and thoughts on life. On this podcast, you'll find genuine, unscripted conversations on various topics, whether it's casual or something with a little bit more purpose. Follow along and see where this journey takes us.
Yeah, so welcome everyone to the first episode of Covenant Brothers. And yeah, as Nathan just said, uh, I'm David Waddell. He's obviously Nathan. And yeah, we'll just talk about pretty much whatever. Sometimes it'll be something with some uh, real purpose and meaning to it. And sometimes if we just want to have a casual conversation just about whatever we want to talk about, we'll just chat. But today, to start, I think it would be a good idea. Me and Nathan have both agreed that just to start with the podcast, it might be a good idea to introduce ourselves to anyone who may be watching and or listening. Just to get to know us a little bit better, find out how we know each other, and I think to start, Nathan, I think it's a good idea to start with when we first met. So I don't know if you
Okay,
remember that.
that was, uh,
It's a
I
long time
remember it
ago.
being, yeah, it was a long time ago.
To the best of your
That
memory, what
was,
do you?
to the best of my memory, uh, I think it was, well, it was at um, church or the school that we were going together, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's what I recall.
Yeah. Yeah. And we basically went to the same school, private school for a bit. And we both were into drumming, and that brought some tension between us. But we ended up resolving that tension. And yeah, we grew up from, I'd say I was probably like, I mean, it was grade school, so we were pretty young, in our early years.
Yeah, yeah, I was quite young. So how I remember, excuse me, what I kind of remember from my we might have met a little bit before this, but it was at the
Yeah.
church, and that your parents were pastoring at the time, and
Mhm.
I don't remember how old I was. I was like really young. I think I was like
Yeah.
7, 8 years old or something.
Yeah.
And and I remember back then, uh, I was still a awkward, shy kid whenever, and I didn't at that time. I never really uh, hung out with too many other kids at that time. I spent most of my time at home, and so when it came to making new friends as a little kid, I didn't know how to do it. And I remember when I was a little kid, I had this idea that there had to be something that made a friendship official. So you couldn't just
Mm.
hang out with someone and then just have a friendship naturally develop. I thought there had to be like a solidifying
Huh.
thing that had to be
Yeah.
done, otherwise you weren't friends. And so I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
this, and maybe we met before this, but to my knowledge, my earliest memory with you is when I was like 7, 8 years old. You had been like 10 or 11 or something, and
Mhm.
we were at the church. I think it was at a youth group, like the youth church or something that they had, and we were talking and whatever. And I remember we were hanging out, got along pretty well, and and I wanted to be friends with you, and so but of course I thought I had to make it official, so I asked, "Hey, do you want to be friends?" And then and
Okay.
then I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
got you. I can't remember, but you said, "Oh yeah, sure, whatever," and then just like, "Yeah, I'm a friend" or whatever. So, but yeah, no, that was like long, long time ago, like well over a
Yeah.
decade ago, and yeah, and then I would have, I guess it would have been like the next year or two, maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess not long after. Yeah, that's when I started going to the school there, and yeah, and then just developed from there, and
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I
That's
remember we built snow forts and played
yes,
like King of the Hill and that sort of
yes,
thing. That was always fun.
yes, that was awesome. Yeah, we got some pretty
Yeah.
epic snow forts because the
Oh
big
yeah.
parking lot,
Yeah.
the snow plows would always go into the parking lot, and then they'd always like pack up
Yes.
those giant snow banks off
Yeah.
the side because we had like the big piece of land that wasn't being used during the winter, but it was a perfect spot for the snow plows to just put all the big shovels of snow or whatever. And man, those were some huge epic
Yeah,
snowbanks, and we used them to the
they were
most.
amazing.
Those were amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a lot
it
of
was
fun.
cold, but it was a lot of fun. King of the
Yeah,
Hill
it was
was
awesome.
pretty
King
fun.
of the Hill. Yeah, snow
Yeah,
forts. It was some of the best times, man.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we, I mean, we were growing up, and so like I'd say like we had we had a friendship, but it wasn't like a close bond.
Yeah.
and I don't think that really clicked until it was, I'd say, um, when I got into high school and then decided to, after high school, go to another country, totally unknown to me. I went to a Bible college there in Thailand, and I came back the next summer. And while I was in Thailand, I lived like every day in a dorm with like all these other guys and all these other students. And you just build this like close knit relationship. And when I got back, I missed that, but I also knew that I needed to strengthen relationships that I had in my hometown. And one of the opportunities I had to speak at my church, um, when I got back, I saw David while I was preaching in one of the rows there, and he was listening, and there was just something that sparked like a connection there, and I was like, I knew I needed to go up to him afterwards and talk to him, and so we did, and what I was saying before about the drama that we kind of had in elementary school with the drumming stuff was I was like getting into learning how to play drums and stuff like that, and then I ended up playing on the worship team, and then David starts playing drums, and some of these other kids in our school as well, and so I just felt like I had to measure up, and so because of that I felt insecure of my own abilities, and I wasn't encouraging. At times I would say I was discouraging to David as well as to the other students that were there of them learning these different skills, and because of my own insecurities that I had. And I remember when I was preaching that message was like it was on relationships and building um, friendships that last throughout time, and that was something that just struck deep inside me, and I knew I needed to like apologize for that, as well as to like I knew that there was something more there with that relationship that I wanted to build. And so it was after that like we connected more, and I just remember then we started like weekly or bi-weekly going out for lunch together.
Yeah, yeah, it was yeah, it was really good. And yeah, there was like a bit of tension and everything for sure growing up, but the whole time I think we still considered each other to be friends. We weren't like besties
Yeah,
or anything,
yeah.
but um
No,
yeah, we were
we
still
weren't enemies
friends.
at all,
Yeah,
but
yeah, weren't enemies by any means,
mhm.
but yeah, just your typical friends or whatever. And yeah, when because there is like yeah, so when you started going to uh Victory Age Bible College, which is the Bible college in Thailand, um, since you're 3 years older than me, I was already like a year through high school when you first went, and I think
Yeah.
because I remember like that time in my life, like when I was going from like 13, 14, 15 years old, like right before high school to entering high school,
Mhm.
the youth group that we were in and the churches, like all the churches and the youth
Yeah.
groups were like really close, and so we'd go to like a bunch of youth events and all the stuff and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it was then when we were like starting to get a bit closer and everything and all
Yes.
that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And then actually I remember the first time I think you may have said it a little bit here and there. I can't fully
Hmm.
recall. I think you might have said it a little bit here and there, but I didn't really fully register it, what entirely it meant. But I think it was one time we were in like at one of those youth events, and then
Yeah.
it was like we had like a little thing where it was um, like a going off to college party celebration
Oh,
gift
yes.
exchange
Yeah.
thing, and that was when like
Yeah.
I don't know, something about that event like really stuck with me and just like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, you really are going. and it said you're
Yeah.
going to be gone
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was like I was happy for you and everything, but I was also kind of like upset because we were like
Sad.
really starting to get close, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're gone, and I'm like just got into high
Yeah.
school and didn't. And of course, I'm like shy
Hmm.
and awkward all throughout my childhood, including high school
Yeah.
and everything. And so I don't know. There was like mixed emotions there, but no, when you
Hmm.
came back and then you like reached out because you came back to Canada each summer, and
Yeah.
you reached out to me, and I really appreciated that, and it was really awesome to reconnect and get close like that, and shared a
Hmm.
lot more about like visions and all that sort of stuff, and yeah,
Yeah.
just going out to eat every other week and just hanging out where we could, and yeah, and then you would share a lot about the college that you did go to in Thailand,
Hmm.
and it really played a big part of me. You're getting closer, you're sharing all these stories and all these visions about
Yeah.
Thailand and VABC and everything, and it really had a big impact because after a few summers, I think it was the summer of 2017, I told
Yeah.
you because you were like a few weeks before going back for your third year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I told you, like, I think it was our last time, maybe second last
Yeah.
video
And it
before you
was
came
like a
back.
week before I left.
Yeah, and then I told you that, I wanna go to VABC, and I
Hmm.
remember you were saying because you said this lots of times before. They just like I don't want to feel pressured, but VABC is a really
Yeah.
awesome place, and no, it really was good, and I really
Yeah.
was like because I was looking for a place like that for a long time anyway, and you just
Hmm.
shared it with me, and I didn't want to miss out
Yeah.
on it. But of course, I was still shy, awkward, insecure, and I never left Canada or
Hmm.
anything like that, and so it was still a big challenge to
Yeah.
bring myself to that decision. But I'm very happy I did, and yeah, definitely best time of my life, and very grateful that you could expose me to
Hmm.
that and help guide me through it. Because I know your last year as a student was the first year that I came, and of course the
Yeah.
friendship only grew from there, and that was just.
Yeah.
And now I just graduated a few months ago, so this was like
Yeah.
maybe
It's
4 years
crazy.
ago. So it's
Yeah.
crazy, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I find it so fascinating how it worked out too, where you were able to come on my last year, and so we were able to, I was able to help break you into the different world that, across, traveling across the whole world, we flew over together, and we, went through all those steps, those, really stressful steps that I had to go through pretty much alone. I mean, I had my parents that helped me, but it was like, and my dad flew with me the first time I went,
Mm.
but I still felt like I was going on my own. And then when he left, like a few weeks later, it was like I'm here, with all these other people that I really don't know at the time, and you just really get so close to these students and
Mm.
these people, these leaders there, and it impacts you in such a way where I felt like what they showed to me, the leadership that they imparted into me, that I needed to also impart that into someone else. And in particular, it was David at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that I really cherish those days. Like those days are really special to me when I came back. Like that was one of my motivating factors for staying back in Thailand, in Canada for my summers, was like I almost wish at times that I could be totally just in Thailand the whole time, but
Mm.
I really it was so I guess refreshing, and it was something I always looked forward to when I did go back home, was that I'd be able to spend time with David and connect with him more, and we'd talk together and just share like dreams and visions that we have for our lives. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was quite the journey, but and it's still continuing, but it's
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah. Hopefully, that kind of gives a basic overview of to anyone watching or listening as to
Hmm.
how we know each other and yeah, kind of the friendship that we've developed over the years, and yeah, definitely feel like together we have that covenant relationship that
Yeah, we have a
you know.
good connection, a good brotherly connection.
Mm-hmm. Hence the name of the podcast. So there you
Yes.
go. And so, um, yeah, so I think before we go, I kind of want to talk a little bit about, which is kind of related, because both of us, I don't know if you want to call them lucky numbers, but we
Hmm.
both have like two different numbers that are like pretty significant to each of
Significant.
us. Yeah. To
Yeah.
me, less so. I think Nathan's story behind his number is infinitely more significant than me. Mine's just kind of, it's kind of cool. But that's, so I don't know, Nathan, do you
Hmm.
want to share your story first, or do you want to save the best for last and have me go first?
Um, I think it doesn't really matter. I think I don't know if I'd go into full detail with mine
Yeah,
because
that's
like I
fine.
think that's something that we'll unpack
Yeah.
over this podcast. Like
Hmm.
I'd say just about like for me, the number 30 really stands out to me because something significant happened on March 30th in 2018,
Hmm.
and there was an accident that happened in another country that I was in with another friend of mine, and he ended up passing away. And I'm, we had spent, he also went to the Bible college in Thailand, and we spent like so much time together. Like every day I was there, we spent together. And so when that accident happened, it was a total shift in my whole life. And even today, I still find myself thinking about it, and it's really hard at times to come to terms with it. But yeah, like I'll go into more detail, as we go on through
Hmm.
this talk. But it's just a very significant day of my life,
Yeah.
March 30th, 2018, because something so significant happened that impacted me in many ways. And, it changed the course of my life, and, in good ways and potentially negative ways, like there's, those different things you have to work through. But ultimately, it is a huge miracle, and a miracle that I'm still alive too.
Hmm.
So yeah, it just stands out to me, and I want to remember that day for the rest of my life, um, for what God has done in my life and through my life, as well as through Yipsara's life.
Hmm. Yeah. So, really powerful story. Definitely would be awesome to get into that story a bit more if it comes up in future episodes for sure. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's number 30 for you is definitely super significant, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's really
I mean, and
impactful
my
story.
birthday too also
That
falls
that
on the
too, yes.
30th, November 30th. I just remember like that just clicked in now.
Yeah, it just goes to show how significant March 30th was. Your
Yeah,
birthday is also on the 30th, but that stands out more when you
yeah.
think of 30. Yeah. So yeah, my number is 17, and it doesn't. The story behind that is not nearly as significant as Nathan's, but for me, when so it's kind of funny. So kind of starts way back in kindergarten. Again, I was a weird kid. So when I
Weren't
was,
we all?
well, true, but and the way how I was weird is that like in kindergarten, it was kind of funny because in kindergarten, um, until I went to high school, kindergarten was the only other year that I was actually in public school. And so when I was in
Mm,
kindergarten public school, I was actually a bully. And I was actually homeschooled for grade 1 and grade 2. And part of the reason was because I was a bully and my parents didn't want me to stay that way. So they took me out of the school so I wouldn't beat up other kids. The thing is, I didn't know I was a bully. I just my friends I had in kindergarten happened to be the
yeah,
other bullies, and I just did what they were doing. But it was
yeah.
and so yeah, some of the things I would do is like at recess, I'd like throw a bunch of those little stones on the playground at other kids in the winter. I'd like spend my recess looking for yellow snow, picking it up and giving it to the other kids, telling them that it's like
What?
banana or lemon flavored thing. Even though I knew it wasn't that, but I
Yeah,
again
yeah.
I wasn't a nice kid in kindergarten, but but
Kindergarten.
yeah,
Wow.
but the funny thing is that even though this was the type of kid I was in kindergarten, I had a lot of sympathy and empathy, or whatever word you want to use, for letters and numbers. so,
Hmm.
so when I was in kindergarten, uh, I would call myself Q because my favorite letter was Q, and my favorite letter was Q because I felt like that the letter Q wasn't used enough in the English language, and so to make the letter Q feel better, I wanted to name myself Q.
That's
so,
funny.
but I remember my second favorite letter was still
Yeah,
D because D was the first letter and
letter of your
name
name. Yeah,
David, and just like I mean I'm still David, so I have to make D my second favorite. But then my third favorite letter was Z, I believe, because that
Zed.
also felt like it wasn't used a lot. But Q was the one that
Yeah,
I really was firm about for whatever reason. And so yeah, I heard stories from my mom and from because like in kindergarten you like do the coloring art for pages and you have to take those home and write your name on them and stuff. And my mom would tell stories about how when I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher would get confused because as she's like sorting through all the artwork and stuff from all the kindergartners, everyone has their names written on them, and then all of a sudden she gets to a
yeah.
picture with just a giant Q, and then she'd be confused with it and just like, oh, that's David. So yeah, I would call myself Q. Um,
Wow.
so and then and then so that was in kindergarten is mainly about letters, but also kind of numbers. So when I was in kindergarten, my favorite number was actually 11. Again, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, I felt like the number 11 wasn't used a lot. I don't know why I thought that, but when I was in kindergarten, like 5-year-old me thought 11 wasn't used a lot, so I wanted it to be my favorite number. Again, I was a weird kid, but um, and so, but as I grew up, I don't, I'm not much of like lucky numbers per se, but as I like grew up and became a teenager and whatever for whatever reason, and there's like literally no reason to it that I can think of, but there just sometimes be some random numbers that be in my head more than others just for no reason.
Yeah.
Just like I'm just walking around, just have random head thoughts, and then just for whatever reason I just think of a number and I don't know why. Um, Sometimes that number was oddly enough 11. I wonder why. Sometimes that number is 14, but the number that showed up, and a few other numbers, but the number that would show up more than any other number was 17. And I didn't exactly
Hmm.
know why, but the number 17 would
Yeah.
always show up a lot in my head. And I don't know why I would think about that often, but I did. Um, and it was kind of interesting because when I entered high school, in grade 9 in high school, I joined the rugby team and I played rugby all throughout high school. And when we were on our way to the first tournament, this was like a week or so, a little bit before our first tournament, and we were told that we would get our jerseys on the bus towards the tournament. And
Yeah.
we didn't get a say in what number we would get. And so just like,
Hmm.
okay, whatever, just I'll get whatever number I get. But after that thing, I just had this like feeling, and I would, and it was kind of interesting because I felt like that was God telling me that my number would be 17. I
Hmm.
don't know why, because like I've heard God talk to me before, and it was like that same sort of like voice feeling
Hmm.
thing, like moving in your spirit. Like I felt like it was God, but I wasn't entirely sure, so I was
Yeah.
kind of confused, just like why 17? I don't have a say anyway. And but it was also one of those things that you think it's God, but you're not entirely sure. At least for me,
Yeah.
anyway. So I don't think much of it. Just like okay, I think this is you, God. I think my jersey number is going to be
Hmm.
17. But if it's not, then whatever. I guess it wasn't you. Then it's just my own random thought because I have random thoughts anyway. But this was different
Yeah.
because it always is different when it's God talking to me. But it's kind of hard to explain. But so anyway, so a little bit of time goes by and we get on the bus and the jerseys are being handed out. And wouldn't you know it, my jersey number is 17.
Wow.
That's about it. That's about all the significance that 17 has
That's
for
so
me.
cool.
So it's not as significant as your story by any means, but still an interesting thing. So
Hmm.
if I had to choose a lucky
Yeah.
number, even though I don't really believe in lucky numbers per se, I would have to choose the number
Hmm.
17 for whatever reason. And I guess it kind of also makes sense because it was
Yeah.
2017 where I made the decision to go to VBC, so I guess it was that too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. And you were born in what year again?
2000.
2000. Yeah. So
So
like, yeah, that was the other thing. I was picking up on that. I was like, wait a second. Weren't you either
yeah,
17 years old
I would
or
have
it
been
was
17.
2017 that you made that decision?
Yeah, I was 17
Yeah.
years old when I made the decision to go to
Yeah.
VABC. That is also correct. So I guess
Yeah.
there's a bit more significance, but
Yeah.
still I think your 30 is more significant. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, yeah. But I think to each his own. Like each person has some thing significant that you can't compare it to someone
hmm
else's
yeah,
life. Like even like when it comes to like comparing like what God does in one person's life versus what He does in someone else's. Like I don't think that's something that we should like compare
mm,
because it has a different impact for each person.
true.
Really, I do get what you're saying. though with what did happen, and yeah, we'll get into that at some point.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the ultimately with this podcast, we want to continue sharing like our journeys together as we grow in relationship with each other, as well as um, what God has done in our lives and through our lives, and even maybe possibly bring other people on to kind of share their journeys too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that'll be really good moving forward. But yeah, so I guess that's an introduction and a few extra interesting stories thrown in here and there. But yeah, definitely moving forward, it's going to be a lot more to be looking forward to. So unless
Yeah,
there's
thank you
anything
for
else,
joining us.
yeah, thank you for joining us. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about today, Nate.
I think that's good for now.
I think so too. All right.
Quick introduction.
Yeah, good introduction. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, listening in, and yeah, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, have a good one.